Green Angel by Alice Hoffman, pages 11 through 15. I would have gone with my family on the day that it happened, but someone had to stay home and pull weeds. Someone had to coax the tomatoes into turning red and persuade the squash blossoms to bloom. And that person was me. We lived within sight of the city, which glowed silver at night and shone like gold in the afternoon. Every week we brought our vegetables across the river to sell to city people who couldn't get enough of our peas and lettuce and beans. Every week we crossed the bridge, and as we did, I held my breath. I could feel happiness then. I lived for those trips to the city. On the weeks I couldn't go, I pouted for hours. The city was my treasure, and I loved everything about it. The shops on the avenues, the books in the stalls, the chocolates weighed and measured by vendors in the streets. No one in the city cared if your hair was long and tangled or if there was dirt under your fingernails. No one cared if you whispered a greeting to the linden trees that circled the park where we set up our stand. You could be who you wanted to be in the city. You could be whoever you were deep inside. It was like a garden of people, the only place I didn't feel alone in a crowd. Naturally, I wanted to go that day. It was my turn. But Aurora was still too young to stay by herself. And on this trip, my father was needed to carry the heavy crates, wooden boxes overflowing from the best harvest we'd had in years. As for my mother, she was the one who drew the customers. Like the white moths who were entranced by Aurora, people on the street couldn't resist my mother's sweet voice, her gentle hands, her long black hair raven colored like mine. It was clear she couldn't stay. It made sense for me to work in the garden, for me to be the one who stayed home, but I was angry all the same. When my family set out to leave, they called goodbye, but I didn't answer. My father whistled a tune, and although the sparrows returned his call, I did not. I wouldn't even look at him, even though he was so strong and so kind. I didn't say a word. I'll bring you something special, Aurora promised. I knew she'd spend all her free time searching for a gift that would please me, a book or a bag of sweets, but I didn't blow her a kiss or wish her well. There will be plenty of time for you to be the one to go, my mother told me. My mother, who was so beautiful, who knew the secrets of the growing season, who always assured me that everyone had her own path and that mine could be found in the garden. Green, my mother said to me that day, moments before they left for the city, we're leaving you behind because you're the one who's needed most of all. Now that she was standing next to me, I was surprised to find I was almost as tall as my mother. I felt my love for her in the back of my throat, like a stone, heavy, making it impossible for me to speak. I was almost a woman myself, too old to admit I was wrong, or so I thought then. Too old to race after my mother when she turned to leave. I had too much pride to say goodbye. I kept my nose in the air and my back to them. I was green, moody and prideful and angry. I will forever remember that I turned away. We had so many birds in the trees back then, and each one sang to me while I did my work. I weeded for hours until my hands ached. 3 blue jay feathers drifted down to me. I kept them in my pocket as a gift for my mother, if I decided to forgive her. The day was perfect, cloudless and blue. Still, I continued to feel sorry for myself. At noon, I decided to take my lunch up to the hillside that overlooked the city. I let my sister's dog Onion trail after me, even though he was an annoying beggar who sometimes growled when he saw me. Today, Onion tolerated me because my sister wasn't there, but I knew I was just a substitute for Aurora. It was so warm that I was tired by the time I reached the top of the hill. I can remember the way it felt to breathe in the hot, still air, the stitch in my side, the river in the distance flat as a mirror, the brambles that had caught in my long black hair, the blue jay's feathers in my pocket, the chattering of a wood thrush overhead, the dog whining softly, the pulse in my throat at the last moment of the world as it was. People who were close by said they could see people jumping from the buildings like silver birds, like bright diamonds. The ground shook, people said, but from where I stood, all I could see was smoke. I could hear the whoosh of the fire all those miles away across the river past the woods. I could hear it as if it were happening inside my own head.